The world is concentrating on identification and verification for various purposes of use of the internet and services on it. The fact is, we're looking at the wrong solution for the wrong problem. Hello, I'm Nigel Morris-Cotterill, a pioneer in the field of financial crime risk strategies with more than 30 years' experience. I first looked at the prevention and control of crime on the internet in the mid-1990s. Personal identification and verification of identity is at the heart of financial crime control measures. So when I say that identification and verification on the internet is the wrong solution for the wrong problem, I say it against the background of decades of relevant experience and an approach to problem solving that begins with critical thinking. Ask yourself this: is the problem people accessing bad stuff on the internet, or is it that there is bad stuff easily accessible on the internet? The internet, by which I mean users and the companies that run the tech, not the tech itself, have powerful lobbies arguing against censorship, and they have done for well over a quarter of a century. But there is a simple solution, a solution that was first decided in a German court in the early 1990s. US membership platform CompuServe, which later became part of AOL or America Online, was involved in a court case in which it was decided that internet site owners are publishers and should be subject to the same enforceable standards as the publishers of newspapers, magazines, and books, for example. This has not entirely disappeared, but because we can see elements of it being brought to bear in relatively recent cases in Australia. But essentially, the CompuServe case appears to have disappeared. And in the USA, the freedom of speech lobby won the argument that US citizens have a constitutional right to say what they want, when they want, and to who they want. But actually, the US constitutional right to free speech has been restrained in many ways over many years. And free speech, like the alleged, have you actually read the Constitution, right to bear arms, has been a rallying call for extremists of all hues. And like it or not, the USA and its companies dominate how the internet operates. If people are free to say what they want, when they want, and to whom they want, then no burden, moral or legal, can fall on those who publish or republish those words. In fact, the USA actively promotes the dissemination of false and misleading information. The Digital Millennium Copyright Act expressly provides that any person who republishes anything that person finds on the internet is not liable for any consequences arising from that republication. This is how you get the free spread of fake news using things like YouTube and the like. That's what it says, but it's not how it works. It's almost everywhere in the world an offense to publish materials glorifying terrorism, manuals for making weapons that terrorists might use, big knives, no problem, little bombs, big problem. Publishing pornography, especially that including children, is banned. The problem is not actually constraining free speech. The problem is enforcement. It has long been known that an easy route to get governments to do what pressure groups want is to build a campaign around harms to or needs of children. Even large global charities do it with the annual collections supported by black and white images of malnourished children with flies in their eyes. Extending the scope beyond children to an ever-growing range of, quote, vulnerable people widens the range of vectors of attack available to pressure groups. And they're right. To refer to vulnerable people is a pressure tool, not a reality. We are all vulnerable on the internet. We are put at risk, and we do need protection. But putting the burden on those people, the victims, to go through at best a dubious identification and verification system is not the solution. The root cause of the problem is that the content is there at all. Companies say, we can't police it. I say, yes, you can, but you don't want to, because to police it is contrary to your bottom line. It's not as if the technology isn't already there. It's used in banks and insurance companies all day, every day. If you have a business model that says, come, use our platform to publish anything you like, and we'll even pay you if lots of people watch or read, then you're not part of the solution. You're part of the problem. Here's the irony. I do support identification and verification for those who post, although the manner in which it's done is woefully unsatisfactory. I also support identification and verification for those registering an internet domain name. These are measures that I put in my book, Cleaning Up the Net, in 2015. There's a link in the description. But I do not support identification and verification for those who wish to use their own computers and to use services for reading or other activities that do not involve engagement with and persuasion of third parties. If we police internet content in the same way that we police your local evening newspaper, with the backup of easy reporting of dangerous websites and a rapid takedown process, reversible in appropriate cases, we can reduce the incidence of access to harmful materials overnight. And we put the burden where the profit is made, not as now creating more but different risk and producing more profit for the tech sector at the expense of ordinary users, you, me, people like us. And this has to be properly managed. Google threatened to block advertising on our sites because I wrote an article drawing attention to the difference between American and English, part of which includes a comparison of the word faggot. Google's tech couldn't understand what I said. Worse, Google did not manually review my response, and it was left to the community to respond. And it was quickly clear that the community either didn't understand it or objected to the use of English. It means meatballs, incidentally. More than a decade on, social media is using community standards to define what is and is not acceptable, but those making the decisions are not an effective cross-section, and it appears they don't use English anyway. Are we to be forced to work in American because that's what service providers have taught their software? LinkedIn blocked me because of a claim that I had posted an inappropriate job ad. I have never posted a job ad on LinkedIn. A woman speaking on YouTube about Palestine found her live stream abruptly cut and her service curtailed. The reason given was that someone in the video was waving a gun around. There was no gun, but YouTube lied and said that her appeal had been reviewed by a human and breached community standards. We have a t-shirt and posters and things about exactly this, where companies are basically accusing people of all kinds of wrongdoing, but not making it clear what they might have done. Because no one knows what community standards are, because nothing is ever expressed as a standard to which anyone can adhere. So there's a problem with content, but the available solutions don't work well enough. They should work. And that is where attention should be concentrated, not on creating a global registration system for people that want to watch kittens chasing a ball of wool. It's the wrong tool, and it's addressing the wrong problem. You can find me at countermoneylaundering.com. There's a link in the description. And of course, there's a link to the Project 70 posters and things. So have a look at that, please. Please also support my channel with a like, subscribe, and share. Thanks, really, it does help to grow this channel. See you next time.